All right, guys, so today I will be talking about progressive overload and go into a little bit more depth of this training principle in order to help you apply it to your training to optimize your results, whether that is gaining strength or increasing your muscle size. I'll also touch on some things that you should consider when you apply progressive overload in your training. So let's dive straight into it. The first point that I want to talk about is start with whatever you can do with good form first before you start progressive overload. So technique is absolutely king. If you have just started weight training, then I would highly recommend you practicing the movement pattern, getting the form and technique right, and gaining that confidence before you start to consider this. When your form and technique, when you've got more confidence and you feel stronger and you're ready to progress, then that can be achieved in a variety of different ways. We know that if your goal is to gain strength or increase muscle, then it makes sense for the weight to increase over time. But there are other different ways that you can progress. So you could still lift the same weight, but if you're able to go deeper in a squat, you are able to have better range of motion, that is still progress. If you work on your tempo, where your muscles under tension for a longer period of time, or even decreasing your rest time. So all these factors are forms of progressive overload if you still stick to the same weight. So it's not just the weight itself, but there are other factors to consider as well. And if you a little bit more advanced, you could also add in pause reps or drop sets. And what I like to do with my clients is, if they are confident, I would just say, and they want a little bit more of a challenge to push themselves in that set, I would say with your last set, take that to failure just for that extra challenge. So this is really important because it's not just the load, but consider all of these factors because they are also progress in your training and in your performance at the gym. The next point is that progressive overload is never linear, just like anything else. For example, fat loss is never really linear, muscle gain is not linear. Same with progressive overload, because adaptations happens in waves. So in a training block, for example, you may increase the weight over time, but halfway through your training block, you seem to plateau, and that's totally normal. And then the following week, you suddenly able to increase your weight. So just keep that in mind, that progressive overload is not linear. Everybody's is different because of their training age and training experience. People will adapt much better than other people. So just keep that in mind. If you are not progressing in a linear fashion, it does not mean that you've become weaker. It's just understanding that it just happens in waves. So it's normal to plateau for a little bit, but as long as in the overall picture you're improving in terms of not just your load, but all these other factors, it's still progress. All right, so the next point that I really want to address is especially when you first started strength training, you will gain strength at a much faster rate as a beginner. They typically call it a newbie gains. and you see results and your rate of progression is fast, and the further into your fitness journey, your fitness progress, I would say probably in 3 to 6 months after that, and keep in mind that you are consistent and you're pushing for progressive overload, but the rate starts to slow and you're thinking, I'm not progressing, my results are plateauing, what's happening, I'm giving up. No, this is very normal. So that brings me to my next point. When after your newbie gains period, your rate of progression will start to slow as you become more advanced. So when you become a little bit more advanced, this is so important that you follow a structured training plan or doing smart programming in order to get to your results, whether that is, do you want to get stronger? Do you want to gain muscle? So it's really important to follow a program or a structured plan in order for you to get to your results. So typically in a training block, which could be as short as 3 weeks or could be as long as 6 weeks, it is the same workout, but your goal within that training block is to apply progressive overload. So here I have an example of a 4-week training block. You always want to start your training block conservative. So going at a 60 to 70% intensity or overall effort. And as you progress throughout your training block, you want to increase the overall effort over time. So this way you're also training smarter and able to progress over time. Okay, so it's important to follow a structured training plan and utilizing this progressive overload method at the start of your program, towards the end of your program, increasing the intensity over time. Okay, so my next point, which is progressive overload is going to be harder if your goal is to lose weight or drop body fat. Not to say that it's not doable, it is doable. However, it will be a lot more challenging because obviously if you're trying to lose weight, you are most likely put in a calorie deficit. When you're in a calorie deficit and your goal is to build muscle or get strong, then your best bet is that you are doing your absolute best to maintain your strength or maintain your muscle, obviously through proper nutrition as well. Low or not enough calories, it won't give you the energy required to lift the weight optimally. It is doable, but like what I said, it's going to be harder and probably miserable, I don't know, but just keep that in mind, that if you are looking to build muscle or gain strength, making sure that your nutrition is also complements your training program. Okay, so next one, and I am very anal about this, is progressive overload should never be prioritized over your form. Your form should be of priority, because even as advanced lifters, they will try to progressive overload. They will try to increase the weight, even though they've trained for a long period of time, but sometimes they have sloppy form. Sloppy form doesn't actually get you anywhere. If anything, you are more prone to injuries. So making sure you're continuously working on your form and technique before applying this training principle. All right, last one is it requires a standardized technique. So what I mean by this is that if you are performing an exercise, for example, a squat, You want to be making sure that you're performing the squat the same way every time to measure your true progress, your true, if your goal is to get stronger, your true strength gains, for example. So making sure that the same way, the same depth, so the range of motion, the same tempo, and the same execution. So that is all that I had to say when it comes to progressive overload. The main takeaway that I really want you to get out of this is, especially if you're starting strength training, or even if you've been training for quite a while, your form and your technique is everything. Even if you need to take a step back to really work on your form, then it is better to do that, to take a step back than move forward. Because one, it's a lot safer for yourself, and we want to prevent any injuries. And if you perform exercises with good technique, you will progress much better. Okay, so I hope that this has helped you, and that you will apply this to your training and get the most out of it. If you do have any questions in regards to today's topic, please comment it in this video and I am more than happy to answer anything. But I hope this helps. Thank you.